everybody. Welcome to our fourth Senate meeting and the last Senate meeting before the semester break. So I'll go ahead to the, also I should mention I'm Polytechnic campus, so it's great to be here. I love this campus as well. Can't go wrong, we have an airport, so next time maybe we'll fly in. But so let me go around to the campuses and just make sure we can all hear and see everyone all right. The downtown Phoenix campus, how are you guys doing?
We're doing well. I think the volume could go up a bit.
Alrighty, thanks for letting us know. We're obviously doing great here in Poly. We have Nancy Cook, our campus president, here with us as well, and all of our senators. We've got a full slate. In Tempe, how are you guys hearing and sounding and looking? Are we good in Tempe, Chuck?
Hang on, Joan is turning on her mic.
Thank you.
It's a little loud. And I'm a little loud, too.
Thanks for letting us know. We were kind of working on that about an hour ago. And then last but not least, how about West Campus? Owen, how are you guys doing there?
We can hear you just fine, thanks.
Thank you very much. And just as a reminder, if we lose video, we'll take a 10-minute recess. But if after we still have audio, we'll proceed. But if we lose audio and video, then we'll just adjourn. So go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll go ahead and first, if you would please, we'll do just a quorum check. And you should have your clickers. And just once Chuck gets this up, we'll just pick your campus as you're probably accustomed to by now. Thank you.
Hey, Donna, this is Chuck while we're voting. I just want to remind all the senators in the Poly room that it is a live mic, which is different than they're used to, so they kind of wanted to minimize the paper rustling and moving around as much as they can anyway.
All right, we'll stop doing calisthenics. Thank you. I'm going to let you know, Chuck, when you start to see the numbers slow down. My eyes are too old.
Okay, we'll go.
Thank
We're
you.
at 80 votes now. Any last call for checking in on quorum? All right, closing the vote now.
Thank you, Chuck. Looks good. We're doing great so far. Thank you, everybody. So we'll go ahead and we'll do our quiz question. This is in preparation for the exams that we're preparing for all of our students. So the University Senate utilizes how many of these committees in order to carry out its shared governance functions?
Okay, 86 responses, so last call for voting.
Close. 6 would be a good place, but it's actually 8, 12. We actually have 12 different committees, and honestly, it takes over 100 faculty and academic professionals to support all those committees. So thank you to all of you who participate. Yeah, there's a lot of, we do a lot here in the Senate office. So thank you everybody for all of your work. We'll go ahead and begin with our informational reports. We have 2 speakers today, and I'd like to introduce the first of our 2 speakers today. Kind of provide a little bit of background. Our first speaker is going to be Regent Larry Penley, who is the current chair-elect with the Arizona Board of Regents and has served in this capacity since 2015. A few pieces to highlight, because it would take us too long. Some of Regent Henley's professional experiences are he is currently the president of Henley Consulting, past president of the Thunderbird School of Global Management, former president of Colorado State University and past chancellor of the Colorado State University System, a former dean of the W.P. Carey School of Business at ASU, and was a professor of management and Robert Herbert Arizona Heritage Chair Professor. Regent Henley has held academic positions throughout the world and is Professor Emeritus here at ASU as well. He is a senior fellow at the Center for the Future of Arizona and has served on numerous committees here in the Valley. Just a few of his honors include the Frank C. Carr Award from En-ROADS, Arizona, and the Distinguished Service Award from GPEC. So without further ado, I'd love to please welcome Regent Henley up to the stage, and thank you again for your time.
Thanks very much for introducing me. I appreciate it. I appreciate being back here at Arizona State University. As you heard from your president, this was my university for almost 20 years when I was a professor here and dean of the W.P. Carey School of Business in the last period of my time. I have just a short presentation. I'll go through that with you today. And then I'm happy to answer any questions from anyone at any of the campuses if you have questions. So that doesn't trouble me at all to answer questions. I'll try to do so, and if I can't answer it, I'll tell you I can't answer it. By the way, I'm not the chairman. I'm the chairman-elect. Ron Schupman is the current chairman, and we change in July. The first thing I want to do is quickly remind all of us of the economic impact of higher education. This is something that all of us know, but it's just an important reminder of our economic impact as 3 universities in the state of Arizona at $11.2 billion with 102,000 jobs. The interesting facts, though, about degrees are something that we're very proud of in higher education, that bachelor's degrees matter. Bachelor degree holders earn 78% more than high school, no surprise to all of us. Graduate degree holders earn 28% more typically or on average than the bachelor's degree holder. Here are the typical mean salaries of individuals with graduate degrees, bachelor's degrees, and high school diplomas. It becomes obvious from an economic point of view why it's important for all of us to raise attainment in the state of Arizona and increase the graduation rate both at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level with increased number of degrees. It's important from the point of view of our legislators and governor as well, because those $65,000 earners are providing a great deal more tax revenue to the state of Arizona and occupying much better jobs in the state of Arizona than the high school diploma individuals. But nonetheless, we need all of them for the health of our economy. If you look at the unemployment rate, and this is just another indication of the value of higher education, you see that unemployment rate for individuals with less than a high school degree, the longest bar, at 6.5% versus those with professional doctoral degrees, master's and bachelor's degrees with much, much lower unemployment rates. No surprise. It's also no surprise to those of us who look at job creation in our country to know that since the Great Recession in 2008, 2009 or so, the recovery rate for those with college degrees has been enormous in terms of job creation. Slight for those with some associate's degree or some college at 1.3 million, and an actual decline for those with a high school degree, indicating that increasingly employers want individuals with some sort of college degree, preferring a degree over even some college. Our impact in 3 Arizona universities looks like this. Total degrees awarded in 2016-2017 was over 40,000 degrees. With the additional data of the most recent year, that would of course be even higher. If you compare our enrollment growth in Arizona at our 3 Arizona Board of Regent institutions to other states like Colorado or Utah or Tennessee or Nevada, we see that our enrollment growth is much higher. That is a good indication of the potential for increased attainment in our state, and it's a good indication of what's happening here in Arizona. I noted in the most recent report materials at the Arizona Board of Regents, and Shirley and I were talking about this before we got underway today, Shirley Rose, Professor Rose here in the front, that our remedial rate was down to 12% for this past year. That's also good news. The previous year it was 20%, and it's gradually moved down. Now, whether it'll stay at 12%, I doubt, but I'm assuming with the gradual trend line that we've seen, we will see an improving rate in terms of fewer students needing remediation. If you look at the WICHE states, for example, here, and you see this Arizona, the current population survey, and if we look at enrollment growth, our graduation rates here are ending up being much better than a lot of other states, a few states, but much worse than a number of others. In terms of where we are now, we have an adult population of over 3.5 million who have some sort of degree with a projected rate of 4.1. If you look at the number with certificates and degrees, that's the adult population who would need degrees to achieve the educational attainment rate, If we look at the projection of those based on who's enrolling at college at this point, what we find is that we're well below what's going to be needed for a 60% attainment rate. And you remember that that has been the widely accepted goal of 60%. If you look at the United States versus Arizona in educational attainment, we're still very low in both of those age groups that you're looking at here in every single year. So reaching the 60% educational attainment rate with either a technical certificate, junior college, community college, or a college degree is still a huge challenge for us in Arizona. If you look at the percentage of college enrollments within ethnic groups, you see some of the challenge that is specific to Arizona. We have a significant number of Hispanic and Native American citizens. We have a growing number of Hispanic students, as we know, in P through 12 grades, reaching a majority at this point. If you look at the enrollment rates, though, we face an increasing problem in the state of Arizona of reaching our attainment rate with the enrollment patterns that we see among African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Native Americans. The fact that Arizona State University has focused specifically on financial aid for those particular groups of students is making a difference in terms of our representation of the population in the state of Arizona, but it's not nearly enough still to get to that 60% attainment rate. That is the challenge. The Arizona goal of 60% attainment. If you look at how we get there, and this is a complicated slide, but it's really simple. It just shows how the supply chain works for us here in Arizona in terms of people who move in, people who move out. The ninth graders who move on to high school, only 80% do. 27% then go on to a four-year college. 25% go on to a two-year college. You begin to see the challenge of getting to 60% attainment rate if students don't make it to high school, don't make it through high school, and then don't attend college. If you look at ninth graders and consider them the entire population, 83% become high school graduates. 23% enroll in a four-year college. 17% graduate with a four-year degree. If you look at the four-year degree completion rate, once again, you begin to see some of the challenges, particularly there among men at 13.5%. If you look at the the African American group at 11.5, Hispanics at 9.8, or Native Americans at 5.2. We confront a very significant problem in getting there. One of the reasons that we don't have the success that we need may well be funding. There are a lot of other reasons besides funding, of course, but let's look briefly at funding. If you look to the 50% state support goal for in-state students that the Board of Regents had set some time ago, and you look at the 1998 fiscal year, you see that we were at 88.4% of that goal. If you look down to 2018, we're at 33.7%. So year after year, beginning particularly during the Great Recession, our institutions declined in the level of support from the state. The consequence of that means that institutions like Arizona State University have to more and more find the funds themselves to support our students, to support our faculty, and to make these institutions run. If you look at state fiscal support for higher education at Arizona compared to other states, and Arizona is way over there on your right at the third shortest bar, you see that we have a substantially lower per capita funding rate than most other states in the United States. If you look at the financial aid, however, and financial aid is particularly important to need-based students or to students who are in lower or middle income groups. I'm an old business faculty member. If you look at price elasticity, price isn't very elastic for those in upper middle and upper income groups. They'll go to school whatever the price, essentially. But price is very elastic for lower income households and middle income households. Without substantial need and merit-based aid, those individuals don't end up going to college. And we know that disproportionately African American students, Hispanic students, and Native American students are in the lower income groups in our country and our state. The consequences for them without increased financial aid is that they don't attend college at the rate we need for a prosperous economy and the health of Arizona. If you look, however, here, this is an interesting slide to me. In terms of the comparison, think about it in terms of what's happened in financial support from the state of Arizona. Although financial support has declined, the institutions in our state have increased their use of the revenue that they have, both from tuition, the state, and other sources, to increase year after year the financial aid for our students. So our universities are trying to do the job. And again, when you look at our states and you look at what's going on, in Arizona, we have about $23 million in state financial aid. In states like Georgia, you have over $500 million in state financial aid. So where do we go from here? And here's what the Board of Regents is looking at. The board is looking at helping the high schools to really take advantage of the resources that we have at the university. Professor Shirley Rose and I were also talking about the role that the writing program plays in actually reaching back into high schools to work with high schools as well as to teach remedial writing and regular writing courses at the university. We need to improve the degree to which we communicate information about our resources to the high schools. We also are considering a process of really celebrating the success of some high schools. Last year, we had over 35 high schools in the state of Arizona that sent no one on for a degree program, a community college, or a certificate. Those were students in over 35 high schools who really just looked for a job or did the best that they could without a job. We're planning to recognize high schools that do a good job, not try to punish those who don't, but call on high schools to be recognized for when they do send students off to a technical program, a community college, or a college degree. At the statewide, we're also looking at discussions of a statewide financial aid program like places like Georgia have and other states. We're trying to encourage a data sharing program that would increase the sharing of data among K through 12 schools, community colleges, and universities. The failure to share data among ourselves in our own state represents a hindrance in tracking students and improving the attainment rate. We're also looking at efforts that we might increase P through 20 funding, and those discussions are already beginning to be underway. So we have a number of efforts to really address the financial funding of our institutions and to, in the end, hopefully increase the attainment rate of Arizonans. And that's the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if we have time.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Regent Penley, for really laying that out for all of us. It gives us a clear insight of what the challenges we have ahead of us. I'll maybe just go around to the different campuses, please, and see if anybody does have a question for Regent Penley. I'll go ahead and start with downtown Phoenix campus. Robin, do we have any questions for Regent Penley?
No, we don't. Thank you very much.
I'll ask anyone here at Polytechnic. Any questions for Regent? Okay, thank you.
Question.
Please.
Yes, this is Hala King in Mathematical Sciences. I have a question. I do believe that a grade 35 high schools not to send anyone to college or to get any kind of training is pretty bleak and sad. But our teachers in the high schools do not have resources that are available to schools in California and Georgia and other states. Are there any programs that you are suggesting besides us having this success program? Are there any programs in mind to have teachers and the high school teachers have access to some internships or some programs where they can get a college refresher of what they are doing? Because I think when we have successful teachers, we have successful students. Is there anything that the board is suggesting to sort of elevate the level of enthusiasm and commitment from the teachers in the high schools?
You're certainly right. Let me first just agree with you. If we don't have the resources for our P through 12 teachers, they can't do the kind of job that we want to prepare our students to come on to colleges, nor encourage those students to come. So the board will work with the governor's office this year, no doubt. This is certainly not certain. It's not certain at this point. But the likelihood of our expanding the Teachers Academy with more funding seems to be on the horizon. One of the ways that we could actually help our teachers is to have teachers who are better prepared to teach specialized subjects like math, languages, etc. Right now, we know that there are counties in the state of Arizona that have few or no prepared teachers to teach algebra, science, and courses like that. So there may be some opportunity for us to look at the Teachers Academy to help provide those resources. The university outreach that I mentioned in that penultimate slide is also related to bringing those resources to the schools from the universities. ASU has an online program that can substitute for the lack of specialized teachers in some of those schools right now, making schools aware of that potential to use the online program from Arizona State University rather than a teacher who is not prepared to teach an Algebra 2 course or a chemistry course is one way we can use university resources and reach the teachers and help those teachers to be better off. But often, school districts, individual schools are not aware of the resources that we have. Other questions?
From Wes. Any other questions from Wes before we return back around to questions in Tempe?
No more questions. Thank you.
And Joan, do we have any individuals with
Yeah,
questions?
we do.
If you could introduce yourselves and your program with whom you're with.
I'm Dave Wells with the College of Integrative Sciences and Arts. And Regent Penley, really thank you for coming, and I'm really glad that you're up on all the challenges and issues that we face. It's something that I spend a lot of time with my own research and advocacy on as well. So there's a few things I just wanted to share. first of all, on the P20 part of it, I've been really advocating that we need to go back to birth, to 5. We can't leave that time out because there's so much important brain development that happens in birth to 5, and so many parents who may be well-meaning but don't have the resources or the training to do well for their kids. So, I've really been encouraging us to think broader about, different kinds of rigorous, data-supported programs that have shown successes on that level. Because the other part is, or the elephant in the room is, we need tax increases to actually fund this stuff. It's wonderful a key part of getting, you use 60% educational attainment for college. The one I usually hone in on is 90% for high school graduation rates. And just to get there, you've got to get all these kids to be ready to get there and ultimately to get to 60%. We can't just wait for the high school kids to be there. And we don't have the resources to do that. We've cut taxes in the state for about 25 years, and we have just about 3/4 of the money that we had per capita before the Great Recession. So, and I'm not expecting the governor is going to show great leadership on that, but I know I'm going to be meeting with Kathy Hoffman in a couple weeks, and I'm hoping that she'll help lead some efforts along those ways, and I'm hoping the regents will be advocating along those ways. Thank you.
Yeah, the regents will certainly be advocating for additional funding, and additional funding has to come either from economic growth in the state or from tax increases. It's unlikely that we can have the kind of speedy economic growth that's going to be essential to get the revenue that we need. And as I indicated earlier, without that revenue for financial aid, you'll continue to see a disproportionate number of certain ethnic groups not coming to college, not going on to post-high school education. I'm also in agreement with you about the early schooling ahead of preschool. And if you look particularly at reading and a whole set of issues like that, and some of you in the room know the research better than I know the research in that area, but the data that the Maricopa Association of Governments has put together, MAG, that really documents early school performance really goes back to the preschool experience of those students and the kind of environment that they came from. So there certainly are data that actually support what you and I believe, that is a critical issue if we're ever going to get to the 60%, achieve 60 AZ, the goal that the governor and a lot of groups have adopted around the state, including the Arizona Board of Regents. So I'm in agreement with you. We've got to find revenue.
Thank you.
And somehow we've got to figure out what to do in the preschool. Thanks.
I'm Phil Van Emeter, the senator from the Emeritus College, and I've got a couple of questions. The first is, the data 10 years ago suggested that actually we were almost at a limit in terms of the pipeline. So the number of high school graduates we had effectively was limiting our capacity at ASU to produce more graduates. Now, we've managed to push that further. I guess I'm wondering, what's the balance here? Is there really more a capacity issue for ASU to try to deal with a greater number of high school students or actual high school graduates who are looking for this, or is the problem more one of producing more high school graduates? Second question is, ABOR has had in the past a requirement, I think it was a 17% set aside for monies from tuition that had to be set aside for financial aid. Is that still in place? Has that changed? Is that something that you're thinking about?
Let me deal with your second question first and your first question last. With regard to the set aside, the institutions far exceed the set aside that the regents require. So Arizona State University is putting a great deal more money into financial aid than it is required to do so. That is why it has a profile of students that essentially looks like the population of the state of Arizona, which is a remarkable statement compared to when I was here 15 plus years ago, when we were not nearly at that level at this institution, and certainly not at the other two either. ASU is doing the best in that area compared with NAU and the U of A. So you're exceeding that, as is NAU and the University of Arizona as well. With regard to your first question, I think you represent a real challenging issue in that first question that you point to. On the first hand, I think we need to increase the high school graduation rate and the performance of those students. We're nowhere near the goals in reading and math that we need to achieve that. And we have goals for those as well. We're just not there at this particular point. So we've got a lot to do to improve P through 12, much less what we do in higher education, and to attain the high school graduation rate that we need. And I agree with your colleague. I'd like to see 90% of students graduating from high school, but they've got to do so with the math and English and writing preparation to actually do well at the university. We're nowhere near ready, we're nowhere there. Secondly, with regard to whether we can handle the students that we need to be able to handle to get to that 3 million rather than 2 million citizens who have a college degree or some post-high school accreditation, a certificate of some sort. I think we've got a lot of work to do to figure out what to do. ASU has expanded enormously its online programs. That is one answer to that. But all of us who know 18-year-olds know that many 18-year-olds need a more structured environment to really achieve the degree. So the question is, do you expand the campuses of ASU? Do you expand NAU's campuses, U of A's campuses further? Or do you look to alternatives, collaborations with community colleges? I frankly am not a fan of setting up more state institutions at this point that are independent state institutions. We can look to schools in California, Colorado, and elsewhere that have university systems and state school systems, and we can see the challenging graduation rates, even the 6-year graduation rate, at some of those state institutions, for example, in Colorado, where I was for a number of years. So that does not strike me as the solution at all. Can we use institutions like Arizona State University to really develop some alternatives? I think that's a route that we have to pursue. But we've got to pursue all of these routes to get to the 60% goal that the governor, the Board of Regents, and others have adopted. So good questions. You're right on target with the challenges implied by your questions.
Thank you. And may I say, I think we're extremely fortunate to have you on the Board of Regents.
Thank you. Other questions? And if not, I'll cede my time to the real meeting. Thank you very much,
Joyce.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you again very much, Regent Penley, for your time. I sincerely appreciate it. I do want to go ahead and introduce our second speaker for today. That is our Deputy Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Stephanie Lindquist. And I just want to also mention that I know some of what Stephanie will be discussing today is about academic integrity. And I just want to highlight just how much work she has been doing with this. And it's really been at the request from the Senate's office on behalf of all of our faculty. So she really has been a champion for all of our faculty and their concerns, and in particular academic integrity. So thank you again, Stephanie, if you would please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, President Cataldo. I think we have a slide presentation, Chuck? Thank you so much. Great to have the opportunity to talk with you today about what is clearly an issue that goes to the core of our operations here at ASU and at any other university, and that is academic integrity. About 2 years ago, when I first arrived at ASU, having had experience at a number of other universities in the country, I realized it might be time to revisit our academic integrity policy, simply to reevaluate whether or not it was working and whether or not there was any improvements we could make to it. In fact, I think the academic integrity policy really hadn't been revised probably for maybe decades, I'm not sure, but for quite some time. And so at that time, we initiated a working group that was founded in December of 2016 and included faculty from all across the university and administrators as well, including Arnie Maltz, former president of this body. And we started with a process of simply talking amongst ourselves about what challenges we'd seen with respect to academic integrity, with respect to reporting of violations, what flaws there existed in the system, and how we could revise the policy again to address those concerns. And after that first year, we developed a core set of recommendations for improvement. What we did then was to, first we went and talked to the deans at a dean's retreat, and we talked to them about what challenges they saw in this area, what they recommended by way of improvements. And we then also appointed, or asked the deans to appoint in each college and school an academic integrity officer to carry the process forward in the following academic year. So we convened a group of academic integrity officers from every school and college, so very representative from across the university and all campuses, to talk about how we might actually improve the policy. What were we going to do concretely to change the policy and improve the process? And a couple of things that we saw that we thought might be worthy of us addressing through this process. One was that there was no procedures to support kind of the uniform handling of academic integrity issues across the university. And this is very important in the sense that while we are a very decentralized university and very much value the kind of laboratories of educational democracy that we call ASU in terms of the multiple campuses and multiple schools and colleges, we also thought that when it comes to something like academic integrity, where students need to be clearly on notice of exactly what violations entail and what hearing rights they are entitled to, et cetera, we wanted to make sure that there was some greater uniformity across the campuses. And what we saw, in fact, was that certain kinds of violations were being treated very differently across the schools and colleges. So we learned that. And we wanted to be sure that faculty had the support that they needed. So one, as you're I'm sure aware, one very important difference between ASU and many other universities was that under the old policy, the instructor was really on his or her own when it came to reporting violations and handling that process with a student, including notifying the student of the violation and of what the hearing rights might be for the student. And so we wanted to provide the faculty with greater support because where faculty are completely on their own, and I speak as a faculty member and feel very conscious, was myself very concerned about this, where faculty are completely on their own and have no institutional direct support from their college and school, they may either hesitate to bring a claim of academic integrity, or they may, again, not be doing so in a way that's consistent across all students. And in fact, if you think about the U.S. Constitution, and pardon me, but I am a law professor, so I have no control over myself. I must digress to the Constitution. We are very concerned in this country about equal protection, and we want to treat our students exactly the same way so that they are treated equally across all schools and colleges. The final thing I want to say in terms of identifying problems is we saw that the academic units now, they deal with academic integrity violations very differently, but and they also fail to, well, some do and some don't actually gather systematic data on academic integrity violations in the unit. And this, I think, is important for us to understand at a university level. We need to know what are the challenges that students are facing when it comes to academic integrity. Different groups of students with different backgrounds face different challenges in understanding of what academic integrity violations involve and what the rules and responsibilities they have as students in order to meet those policy requirements. So a couple of things that we've added, and I just want to preface this by saying at the moment what we have is a draft revised policy. We have identified academic integrity officers in each school and college. I hope that you know who your academic integrity officer is, and if you don't, I'd be happy to help you. Send me an email or send an email to your dean. But we've gotten that far, but we have actually not formalized the revision of the policy. The policy itself is not in the academic manual. It is on the Provost website. It is part of the Provost's discretionary policies. Nevertheless, we are here obviously to gather information from you. We have submitted the draft policy to the UAC and asked for feedback from them. And we are also engaged in a listening session for the sanctioning guidelines, which we're recommending, and I'll tell you about in a second. So first, I want to mention the sort of key revisions that we have recommended to the policy. And these recommendations have been made to the Provost. There's a couple of loose ends, but the provost, we want to thank him for his involvement. He has reviewed this policy and these revisions and has endorsed them. We simply need to sort of finalize this and make sure that we're not missing something important, but we also want to get your feedback, as I mentioned. So we have identified the academic integrity officer to provide uniformity across the college. By the way, those academic integrity officers meet several times a semester with us in the provost's office to talk to us and share ideas across schools and colleges. What challenges are you seeing your students facing? How can we better address these challenges? And how can we help facilitate and promote academic integrity across the schools and colleges? So that committee is very important, I think, in terms of thinking about this university-wide. In terms of the investigation and communications procedures, a couple key points I want to make about the revised policy, which we will make available to you to take a look at through President Cataldo's office. So I want to mention that. First is that generally speaking, anyone can report an academic integrity violation under the revised policy to an instructor or, and this is a difference from the pre-existing policy, or to the academic integrity officer. The instructor then follows up with the AIO to discuss the details of the case and propose a sanction. So the instructor and the AIO have a consultation. And then it is the AIO who sends the notice to the students. And we have, in fact, created a template for all of the colleges and schools to use in terms of notifying students, so that students are uniformly told across the campus exactly what the policy is and what their hearing rights are and where they can find more information and support. That, I think, is very important, that we have a template that everyone follows. And so the AIO will be involved in communicating with the students. I think this takes the pressure off the faculty member and very much places it on an administrator who will be responsible for making that communication. That way the faculty member is not involved in that initial stressful communication with the student. And then once a determination is made in consultation with the AIO, the instructor is the one who will determine the sanction, and then that sanction is communicated to the student, and the student then can follow steps to appeal. And so at that point, the student can meet with the academic integrity officer. There's more involved in the revised policy, but these are the high points, I think, that demonstrate the importance of the academic integrity officer as an objective mediator in the process between student and the university when it instructor when it comes to academic integrity violations. I mentioned, again, the consistent communications that will come from the academic integrity officer. We've also talked at length about dismissals from the school or college. We still have not fully sort of determined exactly how we're going to deal with professional standards that govern in some school or colleges. As a general matter, though, where the regular sanctioning guidelines and sanctions are imposed on a student, and the student has reached the level of being expelled from a college or a school, we believe they should be expelled from the university as a whole, as a general matter. And the reason is because what happens is students will in certain circumstances, reach very high levels of violations, which would indeed justify the university from expelling them. But instead what happens is they're expelled from a school or college and they re-enroll in another school or college. And I don't think that's an optimal outcome. And so we want to make sure that we address those issues by ensuring that if a student does meet the level of academic integrity that would justify expulsion from a school or college, it also justifies expulsion from or suspension from the university. Again, there are certain narrow areas of professional standards that, especially with respect to journalism perhaps, where we're still talking about how we might modify the policy to accommodate those. And finally, one of the other important changes is the notion that all school and college boards must, under the new policy, include a student as part of the hearing board process. We also involved, not only did this process of revision involve multiple faculty across the university and administrators as well, but we also included students in these conversations. And one of the things that we did was we asked the student government associations to draft an honor code. We didn't have an honor code. We had a Sun Devil code, which really talks about conduct, but we didn't have an honor code. And we wanted the students to create the honor code themselves. We didn't want to impose it on them. And so they did create an honor code, which is now on the Provost website. You see it here. It is not a code in the sense that it's a statute, a regulation that can be violated. It is rather a code of honor and thus sets a standard for students to meet. The actual kind of criteria for academic integrity are set forth in the policy. But this honor code may be very useful to faculty if they, for example, are teaching an online course and would like to have students sign an honor code in advance of completing the course or before taking an exam. It's really up to faculty, but we recommend that this could be used very instrumentally in a way and positively in a way to help students understand the importance of academic integrity. We've created and upgraded the academic integrity website with a number of links for you, a nice little video there for me explaining why it's important to have integrity. I wish it went without saying, but maybe in certain circumstances it's good for us to reinforce that notion. We're working right now on figuring out a way to create a database of academic integrity violations across the university. This is particularly important in the sense that since we are so dispersed among multiple campuses and schools and colleges, we want to be sure that faculty in one school and college can know and identify whether a student has engaged in an academic integrity violation in another school or college. That's very important for purposes of thinking about what the appropriate sanction is, and so we need to develop an effective database to ensure that can happen. Right now, students can, or faculty can use an XA, XB, XC designation. Happy to send you more information about that, which simply indicates that a grade is being given for the course. It's not a failing grade, but it indicates that an academic integrity violation took place. But in the event, and that is now available for faculty to use, but in the event that this does not, the violation does not have an impact on the final grade, does not rise to that level, right now it's very difficult for advisors and faculty to know whether or not a student has engaged in a previous academic integrity violation. So we're looking for interim solutions to this challenge. We have done a couple things that I think, or at least one thing that I know you were particularly concerned with as a group, and that is to be sure that we have photographs for all online students. So you, when you review the video images of them taking an exam, you can be sure that you are actually dealing with the student who signed up for the course. And so we figured out a way to ensure that students who are online all have photo identifications on file. And we're also talking a little bit, and this is only a conversation that's just begun, about how we can set a symbolic standard for academic integrity in Arizona. 17 states now do have legislation that outlaws contract cheating companies. And those statutes are very interesting. I recommend there's an EAT site that has all of them available. We've been looking at them and thinking about whether that's something that Arizona might be interested in pursuing and talking to the administration here. But there's lots of other ways that we can set a standard in Arizona for representing the most ethical academic institutions for our students that we possibly can. And I think that's it. I'm sure you'll have questions for me. I look forward to answering them. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and make the rounds, please. Robin, do we have any questions for? Please.
Actually, Donna, may I just interject one thing? I didn't quite finish saying one thing about it. We have drafted sanctioning guidelines. So one other way to ensure uniformity across the colleges and schools when it comes to sanctions is to offer faculty and the academic integrity officers some guidelines. Most universities have these that say, first offense, you've cheated on a plagiarism, here's the recommended sanction. It in no way imposes that on an instructor, but simply provides recommendations. And I want to thank President Boniface from the downtown campus and Brittany Paulk, who works with me in my office, for going on listening sessions around to the various campuses to learn about what faculty think about those sanctioning guidelines. So that is an important aspect of this process. I'm sorry I neglected to mention, but I wanted to be sure you were aware. Thanks to Robin for her hard work on that. So anyway, question.
So thank you again. Robin, any questions from downtown Phoenix campus?
No, it looks like we're set. Thank you, Donna.
All right, thank you. And any questions here from Polytechnic? Please, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Deborah Pruitt. I'm playing the part of Susan Squire today. But I am on the Academic Standards Committee for Fulton. And if I'm understanding correctly, we have committees. We have committees of 3 who do the hearings. You're saying that there would be 1 student, so it would be a committee of 2 plus 1 student. How have you worked out how that's going to
Yeah, I don't think that we've set, and I'm just looking at the policy here to refresh my memory, I don't think we have set a size that the committee must take, in which case, and I'm just looking over at Brittany, she's saying that we have not, which means that you could alter the size of the committee. You could simply add a fourth member of your committee, and that could include the student. Does that answer your question? So really, it's up to the school or college. We're just simply recommending in the policy that a student be included on the hearing. That way, students own and become more familiar with the process by being integrated into it as members of the hearing board. It's common across many other schools and colleges. Does that answer your question, Susan?
Yes.
Is it
Thank
Susan?
you.
Deborah. Pardon me, Deborah. I'm sorry, Deborah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you. Any other questions in Polly? Okay. Well, Joan, do we have any questions in Tempe?
Yes, we do. So come up to the microphone, please.
Okay, Jose Menendez from the Physics Department. So I'm very pleased to learn all these innovations, which are great for the university. Let me just make a couple of comments. First, I think it's an important area is that I don't see much incentive for faculty to try to enforce academic integrity policies, and in fact, quite the opposite. Let me give you an example. So we have on Blackboard, we have Safe Assign. Now, some faculty refuse to use Blackboard, and so students turn in term papers which are copied from the internet and nothing happens, whereas other colleagues do care and do have the papers go through Safe Assign and find many cheaters, unfortunately. And then when it comes time to faculty evaluations, these things don't play any role. In fact, the opposite, because the faculty who really try to find these problems, okay, they receive lower evaluations. In fact, it's another area. Students who cheat should be prevented from doing faculty evaluations. So I think it is important to try to get all departments, all colleges, to evaluate teaching, taking this into consideration. Otherwise, okay, if you don't incentivize a certain policy, I mean, we're not going to get the results we want.
Sam, I cannot agree with you more. Thank you so much for that comment. I think part of the reason we wanted to introduce academic integrity officers was to provide support, perhaps not necessarily to incentivize, but at least to support faculty in pursuing these claims so that there's more uniformity across classes when it comes to identifying, detecting, and punishing cheating. But I do agree. I think this is also something that we need to address through the deans and through teaching evaluations, or at least the evaluation of teaching evaluations. And we hear you loud and clear, and this will be something on our agenda to talk about going forward with the academic integrity officers. It just can't be the case, and it's unfortunate that a faculty member who is doing his or her job to identify these problems, because really it's not about retribution or about punishment so much. It's about rehabilitation for students, especially when they're first, violations that occur. And if we don't catch them now and try to help them move in the more appropriate direction when it comes to these ethical issues, who knows what could happen down the road. So I agree with you, and we need to think more about this going forward, these incentives. Thank you so much.
Stefania Tracogna from the School of Math.
Stephanie, hi Stephanie. I'm Stephanie too.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could elaborate on how you intend to enforce the policy for online students to have an official photo on file.
We did. That's the last thing I said. Did you hear me, Stefania? We did.
I know there is the policy, but how will you enforce it? I'm teaching in the spring an online course. 40% of the students do not have a picture.
They have to
yet.
now.
Okay, but how? How will you force them to have a picture?
We have required it, I believe, for their. Let me check on that. I actually don't know. Have we required it for registration? Not sure we've gone that.
But it cannot be required under registration because I have a roster for the spring, and 40% of the students enrolled do not have a picture.
Let me check on that. I actually don't have that on the top of my mind at the moment, Stefania. We made the step of making sure that one was required. Exactly how it's enforced, as you say, I don't know, have in the front of my mind at the moment.
Okay.
But I will investigate and we'll get back to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Bob Wood from the Information Systems Department at W.P. Carey. I teach the Introduction to Computing course in the college. We have 2,700 students enrolled right now.
Wow.
One of the key things we teach in the course is Excel and Access. And we've acquired a program that gives assignments to students, and the programs detect if a student has copied all or part of a file from another student. We have received excellent support from Joe Van Orden in the Dean's office, and he has, quite frankly, made my job effortless in terms of,
he's excellent,
of handling cheating. And we've processed, 100 plus a semester students who receive academic integrity violations. One of the things I do want to say about Joe is that he's developed an approach of, a rehabilitative approach. In other words, this is a freshman course, and so our message to the students is, hey, in business, ethics count, and it counts in this course real bad, okay? And they get the lesson early, and Joe's done a very good job of, follow-up in terms of, okay, you've been nicked for cheating, here's what you have to do now to sort of remove that black mark from your record. So I think if you could essentially acquire software that will, detect that sort of stuff, it helps very much. The other side of that sword we have to work with is we want to encourage students to work together, okay? So if 3 or 4 students sit around together in a room and they're working on an assignment together, we don't have, if they turn in similar assignments, we don't punish that, okay? What we say is that it better not be copy and paste from anywhere. That's what we detect, and that's what we punish. I'm sort of, reluctantly have to say, well, if the student at least makes the effort to type it in, they'll learn something, okay? And we all know that, unfortunately, when they work in groups, there's usually a malingerer in the group, and we can't really root that person out that well. But at least have sent a very strong message, and I think, if anybody wants tips on how to do it, to talk to Joe Van Orden. He does an excellent job.
No, he's wonderful, and I agree that he's done a great job at the Carey School, and there's many standards that have been set there that I think are worthy standards for the university, so thank you for that. I do think, I think group projects are a perennial problem in academia. I think all of us would agree with that, who have tried to grade students as a group. I would note, as a result of that comment, though, that I do think it's important to think creatively about the assignments that we make and ensure that we're not giving the same exam year after year. I realize that's often, certainly efficient, but the challenge is that students are able to come up with ways to find those exams, and so just changing your exam or changing your assignment to ensure that it's not something that can be easily replicated from the web or elsewhere, I think is important, or from someone's file in their fraternity or sorority. Right now, even plagiarism is a challenge because there are so many websites out there now, cheating websites, that enable students to obtain original work by individuals working, I'm sure you're familiar with this, individuals working around the globe. I've told several audiences, there's one website, several websites where there's drop-down menus. You can identify how long of an essay you want. Or a dissertation. Yes, indeed, you can buy a mechanical engineering dissertation on websites, about 500 pages for $53,000. That's actually cheap when you think about the amount of time it takes to write a mechanical engineering dissertation. So these things are readily available, and they are original work. That's a challenge for those of us who want to use Turnitin or something else. That won't catch it. And I just want to say this is such a challenge when it comes to teaching ethics. Students are on these websites offering their image in a video endorsing the websites. Mom and Dad, here I am on a cheating website saying how great it is that I was able to buy my essay on this website. I don't get it, but that is true. And so it really is about re-educating and helping people understand this is not acceptable. It's not a transaction to obtain an education. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. I want to hear your question. I'm sorry. Okay, I digress.
So Jack Spielberg from Math and Stats. So this is a very minor point, so I apologize for using everyone's time on this. But I noticed a couple of phrases in the honor code you put up. To follow the Sun Devil way, uphold the values of the New American University. And these struck me as a kind of more of a loyalty oath than a commitment to academic integrity. I thought perhaps different language might be appropriate.
Jack, I appreciate that point. We really wanted to let the students do it. And so this is a student-written honor code. Now, it may be that it'll be revised over time, and we could certainly, make recommendations. One thing I will say about the New American University, though, just in response to your point, is that it does embody certain values that I think are very universal. So in terms of our design aspirations and our charter, so I think that's what they intended. But so to the extent, but I'm happy to share that with them by all means. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Lee Bebo from the English department. First, I want to applaud the idea of the academic integrity officer. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It would have helped me out quite a bit a couple of years ago to have somebody as a point person and maybe not an advocate, but a referee of sorts. I wanted to turn the conversation away from student academic integrity issues to the less common but more fraught faculty ones. I know of cases between different units, not of my unit, at the university where somebody could have brought up a faculty academic integrity violation. They talked to ombuds people here at the university and they were dissuaded from filing a case or a grievance. And I was mainly because it would take so much energy and effort and emotional taxation on part of the faculty. And I was wondering if you had thought about an AIO as somebody who could chair that type of faculty dispute.
Yeah, thank you for that question. The faculty academic issues, if we're talking about research fraud, et cetera, or plagiarism, are handled through the Office of Knowledge Enterprise Development, and there is a process established there. But I'd be happy to share the idea with them and talk to them about how this might be a way. Hopefully the incidents that we are facing there in that particular arena are far less, obviously, than with students. But I'll share this with them. Thank you for that recommendation.
We have no more questions here.
Thank you, Joan. And then I'll move to West Campus. Do we have any questions?
I'm sorry, I thought we had...
No, we'll do one more campus, then you're free.
We have some questions over here.
Thank you.
Yes, this is Hala King in mathematics. Do we have any statistics how many, this is a lot of work to take a student who is, usually these students have a lot of time at hand and we don't. So my question is, do you have any statistics how many students really were kicked out of the campus over the last 2 years for academic integrity issues? Because if we are not kicking anyone out, I think all this is a waste of time.
Well, I'd like to just put a little different spin. I appreciate your perspective. I think it would be better if what we're doing, and again, we don't have systematic data on this, so it's hard to say at the moment, but if what we're doing is we're identifying violations, and then we are educating students about the consequences of these violations, why it is indeed a violation. It may be that a student does not fully understand that getting someone's help to complete an assignment. And that also may be our responsibility as faculty members to be sure that students are fully aware of the limitations and constraints on their academic activities in terms of ethics and integrity. So while it may be that we're not kicking that many students out, and we do expel students here at the university, so it absolutely is the case that we do get to that point. But I don't think that's the best statistic to identify whether we're doing a good job in this area, because I think actually educating students about ethics and stopping them before they violate again is a far more positive outcome. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, but with all the technology that we have, Stephanie, we have students use their Apple Watches and their iPhone when they shouldn't be during an exam, for example. And they know very well that this is ethically wrong. What are the consequences for something like that? If a student uses their Apple phone to find questions for an exam during an exam.
Well, that is a violation of the policy. And if it is, at the first, what our sanctions guidelines do, and we'll post those for your consideration too. I think you might find them interesting, because what they say is on a first violation, it may be a very severe violation in which someone acted with intent, but on the first violation, they're not going to face expulsion or suspension, but they will nevertheless be sanctioned, and we offer what we think is the recommended sanctioning guidelines. Again, with the thought that even if it is intentional, perhaps they just need to be helped to understand that, in fact, as I've always thought, these things are slippery slopes. If you're going to cheat in college, next thing you know, you're embezzling at your company, right? And we need to be sure that that is not what's happening. So I understand, and this new policy is no different than the old policy in terms of being sure that students are sanctioned when they violate the policy. And the guidelines help, I think. I think you'll find the guidelines helpful there, too. So we'll make sure we post those. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Donna, we do have a couple more questions over here.
We got one more over here west.
Okay.
Hi, this is John Dalmas, School of Accountancy. I was wondering if you could just maybe explain a little bit how the academic integrity officers interact with ASU Online. Do they have academic integrity officers, just to make sure that across the spectrum of the different academic units where their students take classes, if there's a pattern of maybe academic integrity issues, how that's addressed with the online students that we have?
Thank you for that question. We're expecting, of course, the schools and colleges to have academic integrity officers embedded within each one of them to handle both online and campus immersion students. But we have an academic integrity officer in Ed Plus, Athena Kennedy, who's absolutely outstanding, in fact, helped us develop the website to be sure that we have that channel of communication to Ed Plus, and that we're aware of all the issues that can occur in that differentiated environment online.
This is Roger Winter, School of Earth and Space Exploration. So I wanted to answer one of the earlier questions, statistics of students copying. Over the last 31 years, I've monitored in my 100 level courses. And what I did is have a Fortran program, find students with a large number of wrong answers in common on multiple choice exams who are also sitting right next to each other. I lifted those out on a statistical basis, and anytime it was, more significant than 1% level, I'd call them in my office. And in all cases, I got a confession out of them, which I have kept records of. In cases there were confessions, I would let them get away with a second chance. If there were no confessions, we push it up. And so I have a pretty good feeling what that fraction is. And it's about 15% when you don't have, alternate exams of 3 different kinds. And it's a few percent when you do have that. That's in the classical, college room setting of multiple choice
I think
exams.
that goes to the point. There's both deterrence here and education we need to take into account. Deterrence includes offering exam taking environments that promote integrity. I'm sorry to say it might mean that you have to randomly number your questions on your exam or something different. But we also need to help students, I think, understand that integrity in the academic context is no different than integrity in the medical context, in the corporate context, or any other context.
That's the case I make. And I had to go as far as subpoenaing cell phone bills or,
we don't have subpoena power.
Jamming the internet
Just
during
saying.
the...
Well, thank you for that, Roger. I appreciate it.
Hello, my name's Dan McCarville. I'm from SIDSE, over in Fulton Schools of Engineering, and I want to applaud you for these efforts. We've been working on these kinds of things for some years in engineering, but also in the Student Faculty Policy Committee, so thank you. I also wanted to mention, I came out of industry. For most of my career was in industry. I was in executive management, and I know this for a fact that most industrial fraud and integrity issues start in the college level or the high school college levels, and we have to fix it here. And until you fire somebody who has 3 kids and a family and a mortgage and so forth and in debt up their ears, but you have to fire them for these kinds of fraud violations. I mean, reporting them as a cheater in school is nothing compared to that. So we have to do it here, guys, and not let them out. Not let them out with those behaviors.
We need to instill sort of an internal sense of rectitude. And I think that can serve students well for the rest of their careers. So thank you very much. I look forward to any comments you might have. My email is sl@asu.edu. And we'll make sure we post all these documents for your review and consideration and recommendations as well if you have any. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It really was a lot of great information. All right, we'll go ahead and I have just a few things to mention, and we'll kind of move on to new business. But just first, I would like to kind of highlight our senator of the month. This is David Wells. David is with the Leadership in Interdisciplinary Studies in the College of Integrated Sciences and Art. He's been with ASU for 21 years, Thank you. And he has served in the Senate now for 5 years on 2 committees, and has put time and effort into everything that he does for his committees. And he describes his chief focus within his roles as improving transparency and fairness in the distribution of resources at the university. So, David, just thank you so much for your continued support of Senate and your work. A couple other things just to mention is we have a University Senate-driven blood drive. This is tomorrow, November 27th, and it's in Tempe in the Cochise room at the MU. So if you are on the Tempe campus and you want to lose a couple of pounds, go ahead and donate a liter of blood. We'll be grateful. Thank you. I also just want to confirm that we will be sending out service recognition letters for all the senators in the next couple of weeks. So that way it'll be distributed to you and then all of your chairs and directors, so that can go in as we all work on our faculty activity reports coming up soon. So yeah, they'll be delivered kind of mid-December, both electronically and in hard copy, as you're probably accustomed to. Again, we have a lot of great information on academic integrity. There are 2 more kind of listening sessions that are going to be scheduled on the downtown campus for December 6th at 2 o'clock, plus 1 for Tempe on December 7th. They should be going out as announcements, and honestly, if you can't make those, I know they've had already someone downtown on Polytechnic and West Campus. But please make sure if you have concerns to either share those with your academic integrity officers or send those concerns to me, and I can certainly funnel them to Stephanie as well. Last thing, really, that I have to announce is that we do know who our next Senate faculty president will be. Shirley Rose will take on President-elect of Senate starting in spring, and then will take on full responsibilities as Senate President 1 June of 2019. So thank you, Shirley, for your service. We'll go ahead on to new business. We have 2 committee motions. I would like to ask Stefania Strakonia to please come up to the podium. And if you would please read your Senate motion that you're putting forward.
So the title of the motion is Amending SSM 201-08, Withdrawal from Classes General Policy, and the action requested is to request approval from the University Senate to make the following amendments to SSM 201-08, Withdrawal from Classes General Policy. And the proposed change is to add the following sentence to the policy, which is in boldface. Students who withdraw from the same course 3 or more times are required to consult with their unit academic advisor to request approval prior to enrolling again in that course. And here's the rationale. The Senate Student Faculty Policy Committee believes this policy change will better ensure that students who are struggling in a particular class will be connected with their unit academic advisor. Once connected with the advisor, it can be better determined why the student is having difficulty completing the course. The advisor, if necessary in collaboration with the faculty member teaching the course, can help the student devise a strategy for completing the course, for instance, by referring the student to suitable tutoring resources. Alternatively, the academic advisor can help determine the appropriateness of the student's current degree program. The committee believes that this will improve student retention and graduation success, especially for those courses that present themselves as a roadblock to graduation for a struggling student. The committee also believes this policy change will reduce the number of individuals enrolled in a course who may not intend to complete the course. Reducing the number of students enrolled in a course with no intention of completing it opens up spots for students looking to gain access to the class, to complete a program of study, and stay on track for graduation. So if you have questions, comments, feedback, please send me an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefania. Our second motion, I would like to ask Chris Kaiselka, Chair of our Committee on Committees, to indicate as a motion for the floor that we will vote on.
To address vacancies that exist currently on the Personnel Committee, the Committee on Committees proposes that Jonathan Moffitt, with the School of Human Evolution and Social Change, serve on the Personnel Committee for the remainder of this academic year. The Senate must approve membership slates, and I move for Senate approval of Senator Moffitt's membership on the Personnel Committee. Thank you, Senator Moffitt.
Yes, thank you. And Chuck, can we go ahead and put this to a vote, please?
Okay, we have 83 votes, so last call for voting on this motion. All right, closing the vote with 88 responses. Motion is approved. 82 yes, 1 no, 5 abstain.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Right now, I'd like to ask Lily Lane, who is our CAPC chair, to come up and we'll introduce our curricular proposal motions, please.
Hi, everyone. The following motions will be taken up at the CAPC meeting this Thursday, November 29th, and then will be brought back to the Senate for a vote at our next meeting on January 28th, 2019. So as always, if you have any questions, concerns, or suggestions, please get them to me by this Thursday so we can make sure that they are addressed at the CAPC meeting. And certainly let us know before the next Senate meeting so we can make sure that all parties that have an interest can be represented. So here are the motions. Request from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Department of Psychology, for the establishment of a graduate certificate, addiction and substance use-related disorders. Request from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, School of Mathematical and Statistical Sciences, for the establishment of an undergraduate certificate, Mathematical Concepts of Engineering.
Now we'll kind of move on to some of our old business. These are new course proposals in the consent agenda that was sent out a couple of weeks ago. These, remember that we're going to vote on these in bulk unless there is a request for removal of course from the consent agenda. Let me just go around to the campuses and see if there's anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda. Robin, on downtown, anything to be removed?
Yeah, no, we're fine.
Okay, thank you. And here in Poly? We're good. In Tempe, any concerns?
No.
And then Owen and West Campus?
None here, thanks.
All right, we'll go ahead and call a vote, please.
Okay, last call for voting on the consent agenda. Votes closed. Motion approved. 89 yes, 0 no, 3 abstain.
All right, thank you, everybody, again. Next, we have a CAPC consent agenda, and these items are, again, will be voted on in bulk unless a request is made to remove one of the items. And before I ask Lily to come up, I just want to kind of put some context back to a resolution of Senate Motion 2915 from our last Senate meeting. And just to kind of, as a brief reminder, because I know it's probably just right on the foretip of your brain, At the CAPC meeting in September, the proposal of MS in biological data science degree was discussed. At the Senate meeting, Jillian, who is a senator with the School of Life Sciences in class, raised the point that Bio 614 biometry, one of the core courses of the proposal, the proposed MS in biological data sciences, was not included in the initial program proposal approved by their dean of class. After the Senate meeting, the university senator from the School of Mathematical and Natural Sciences, Karen Watanabe, learned from her school director that the biometry course was included in the proposed MS program from the start, which was then kind of communicated to Jillian. Following that, School of Life Sciences was also kind of concerned about the biometry course because they thought the proposed MS program would rely on SOLS to teach the course and Bio 614 at the Tempe campus, which is already at capacity every semester. The one thing being is course prefixes are owned by the different campuses. So that essentially means that only Tempe campus can teach that Bio 614. And it turns out that Bio 614 is taught at Wes already. The proposed MS program will not rely on SOLS to teach the biometry course, so that's good, because I realize those classes. So another concern that was discussed was the potential overlap or competition between the proposed MS programs that SOLS is currently developing and a certificate in computational life sciences, which is another degree program that SOLS is currently developing. At the end, both units agreed that the two proposed programs have minimal overlap, and West Campus would support the program development in computational life sciences. So, with that having been said, Lily, please come on back, if you would please, for the second and final read that we sent out a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you, Donna. So the following motions were approved at the CAPC meetings prior. So our first one is a request from the new College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, School of Mathematical and Natural Sciences, for the establishment of a graduate program, MS Biological Data Science. The next one is a request from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Sanford School of Social and Family Dynamics, for the name change of a graduate degree from PhD in Sociological Inquiry to PhD in Sociology. The third one is a request from the new College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, School of Humanities, Arts and Cultural Studies, for the establishment of an undergraduate degree, BA in Disability Studies. Another one is a request from the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, Division of Teacher Preparation, for the establishment of an undergraduate degree, BAE Special Education, and an undergraduate concentration, BAE Visual Impairment. Thank you.
Again, I'll kind of go around and see if there's any concerns that people have. Robin, any concerns with the consent agenda as put forward?
No, we have no concerns.
Thank you. Any concerns here in Polly? All right, we're set. Joan, any concerns expressed in Tempe?
No concerns, thank you.
Thank you. Owen?
No need either, please.
Outstanding. All right, Chuck, can we go ahead and put this to a vote, please?
Okay, 90 responses. Last call for voting on this consent agenda. All right, closing the vote. Motion approved, 87 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Last item on our agenda is I've asked some of the committee chairs to provide a brief report of the works that they've been putting together this past semester and will continue into the new year, which is scary to say already. So if I could please ask Thurman, who is chair of the Research and Creative Activities Committee, to come up and just provide some insight on your works.
Hello, everyone. Research and Creative Activities Committee is currently looking at some IP issues, research IP, a draft of that document. and we'll pass through that pretty soon after we go through that. We're also looking at the online content IP, and we did find some information about that. Bottom line is that since we are getting paid to create these materials, as soon as it is published, that's copyrighted, and ASU actually owns that. So if you have some issues with that, please send us an email. We could talk about it, possibly more. But we are looking into that a little bit more further. We are also looking at the online kind of publication model and pay structure as well as a model to somehow pay for that processing fee. So we're working on that currently, and we'll report that back to you next semester. Thank you.
Thank you, Thurman. I appreciate that. Helene Ostapov, can you please come and give some insight on what you've been working at? Helene is chair of the University Services and Facilities Committee.
Yes, Chuck, do you have the slide that I sent? Okay, there we go. We had a meeting with with Val Ross from the bookstore to discuss some problems that had come up, and he was very he listened very well and assured us that some of them, especially when it comes to training the workers at the bookstore, that they're going to work on communication and better training. But there are two things that he wanted to make sure that we pointed out. And one of them is that this Thursday there's a massive Apple sale going on, and you know that Apple never, ever, ever goes on sale. So take advantage of it, given that the holidays are coming up. So, you know, if you can get that iPad for a little bit less, that's not a bad thing. 8% discount. This is this Thursday at all of the bookstores at ASU. The other thing that he pointed out that maybe some of us didn't know is that because ASU is ginormous, it's got a lot of negotiating power. And Christopher Hanks at the Tempe store has had a lot of success in talking down the prices of textbooks. So if you're concerned about the prices of your textbooks, and especially if you're teaching in courses that might use the same book certainly across campuses, then he might be able to knock down the price because the publishers would much rather sell at a lower price than not sell at all. So his email is up there, christopher.hanks@asu.edu. And as I said, he's perfectly happy to negotiate on your behalf.
Thank you so much. And then if I could ask Hong Min, who is chair of our Personnel Committee, to provide us a brief report on what you all have been up to.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So the Personnel Committee has been working on issues very diligently, and one of the most important issues that we're working on this year is the salary letter that we'll send to the President. So we've worked through several rounds already on the letter. The Personnel Committee has worked revising it. We've sent to UAC and the Executive Committee. So the letter has been revised, and we're summarizing the issues that we gathered from the second round, and hopefully we'll get a finalized version soon so we can send it. And so another issue that we worked on, thanks to Gary Sweden, our senator on the Personnel Committee, he helped us gather information on the ASU sick leave policies. So I thought this is very useful information for a lot of us who wonder what happens to our 6 days that we've accumulated. So it turns out that you can get reimbursed for some of these times at retirement. Okay. So you don't get them until you retire, okay? And there are a certain number of hours that you can get, but the maximum payment is capped at $30,000. So we've also found out that you cannot really donate your sick days to others, but you can donate your vacation times to others if you're not on a 9-month contract. Okay, so if you're a faculty on a 9-month contract, you can't do that. So we're going to try to summarize the information that Gary gathered and then post it somewhere for our senators to look at, because this was one of the RFC issues we worked on. And Dave Wells have been working very diligently on the issues related to NTE faculty members. So there's the multi-year contract, the rolling multi-year contract issues, and also career path issues. So, and we hope, right now we're gathering information, we're getting data from the Provost's office, so we're analyzing it. So hopefully we'll get some documents written up and to share with all senators. And there are other RFC issues that we've looked at, but we're continually working on those. We'll give you an update later. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hongmin. And then Stefania, can you share with us the work in the Student Faculty Policy Committee, please?
So here's the list of the RFCs that are still open. RFC 35, Guidelines for the Use of Social Media by ASU faculty. I think we are close to a final version, which we will send to the provost for approval and eventually will be distributed to faculty. Well, RFC 157, I just read the motion a few minutes ago, so hopefully that will pass next time and we'll be able to close it. RFC 165, well, we heard good news for Dr. Lindquist about requiring photos for online students. So there is a policy now for that, but we would still like to have more details about how it is enforced. So I think we still have work to do on that. RFC 169, revisions to ACD 804, tobacco-free campus to include a ban on vaping. We have prepared a first draft of the motion, which will be reviewed by the UAC, and hopefully it will be put to a vote early in the spring. And finally, RFC 176, so the open access policy will be inserted in the ACD manual in March, when they go through the next revision of the manual. But there was also a request to change the applicability from faculty to academic assembly. The SFPC has decided that that should go to a vote in the Senate. But we're waiting for the UAC for their feedback. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. And then our last report from our chair, Chris Kaiselka, from the Committee on Committees.
The Committee on Committees met a few weeks ago. We reviewed our agenda for the year, and one of our upcoming projects includes considering nominations for the spring academic assembly elections. We have set a timeline for the nominations process and hope to be done with this part early in the spring semester to be ready for the elections in April. And by the way, the assemblies will be receiving a survey in the next week asking for nominations for campus president-elect as well as members of the grievance committees. And we hope that many of you will nominate or self-nominate for these important elected positions.
Thank you, Chris. That is all of our committee reports. I just want to open the floor. Do I have any questions? I'll just start with the downtown campus. Any questions from any of the senators there?
No, we're fine. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Robin. How about any questions here at Poly? Joan, any additional questions in Tempe?
No questions.
Dolan?
I'm here either. Thank you.
All right, well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. And good luck with last week, finals, comps, everything. Thank you again, everyone. Take care.